Hey guys, in this video I'm going to be talking about putting together fits using Abyssal modules. So what I have here is 4 ships that I'm looking to fit up for my next Gita run. I have a Geno retribution, I have a Snake retribution, I have a Vargar, which I'm excited to start flying, and I have a 60 MN Ikit. So these ships all have kind of their base modules, and then I'm going to look to see what I can do to try and increase performance as well as save money using Abyssal modules. So we'll start off first with this Beam Geno Retry. And we can pop right over here and we'll start looking at a few of the Abyssal modules I have. So we're going to start looking at the MWD to start with. So we'll pull up our 5MNs here. And so for my Beam Retry, I'm really looking for two major stats, and that is speed and signature. And I prioritize signature over speed, especially in the Geno one because my cap is really good. So we're coming over here. We got this 329.6% MWD. That's pretty good. The activation cost is really good though, so I don't really want to put this on my Geno one because of how good the activation is. I don't need something with that good activation. So we'll keep that over there somewhere for now. Look for some other good sig radius rolls. These roll around 400. There we go. There's the 300. Some decent speed, and it's got a pretty negative power grid and CPU, which the Genos can kind of accommodate a little bit. So this could be a really good one. What else do we have? This is decent. I'd like to get the sig radius a little bit lower. It's only at 360, but the speed's really good on this. Moving forward. So that's about all I have right now. So let's see if this one fits to start. So we can just put this in a channel and you can just copy it and paste it right into Pyfa here, which is great. So this puts us quite a bit over on CPU, but we can adjust that by just like putting on another maybe Heatsink, which saves us 10 CPU. But then we're still a little over our power grid. So what we would have to do basically is get this power grid. The only place we're going to get this power grid is from the armor rep. So this MWD is only going to work if we can get a armor repper that can save us 1.5 on power grid. So let's go over and check that out. So we're going small Abyssal armor rep. And all we have right now is a -1. So the next thing we can do is start to pull up Mutaplasmid here. So let's move this over here. Small Abyssal armor rep. Go here, we take this off and we know our fitting constraints. So 5.49 power grid. And the reason I'm not putting CPU in here is that we can adjust the CPU a little bit. I can find Abyssals for this heatsink. I can find Abyssals for this to try and get that CPU down a little bit. But if we're looking at this, there's really only 3 options here, and none of them look exceptionally good. So maybe this MWD is just not going to work out. Let's just pull some of these up here. 17 HP a second. No, none of these are really great. So I don't think this MWD is going to work out as basically because it's just too much power grid. So if we take that fella out, go back in, let's look at those 5MNs again that we have. See if we have anything else that can fit well. 320, no, that was the high activation one. I want it to be like under 350 at a minimum. This one could do it. We'll try with this actually. This looks decent. It's not 350, but it gets close. So let's pull this bad boy up. So that leaves us a lot of power grid left. 9.6. Our small rep might even fit that if we check that out. So this one is 9.87. Ooh, just 0.2 short. That's a bit rough. But it's okay. So we'll go back now to Mutaplasmid and type in, instead of 5.5, we got 9.67 now. And see what we got here. So I like to set myself a nice, I'm probably only going to pay around 200-300 mil, but I like to look at a little bit more to see what that trade-off is for a little bit more price. So I'll put 500 mil up. And then I'm going to sort by armor rep amount, because that's really what I care about. With this Geno fit, I have a lot of extra cap. So pulling this up, we're looking at 400 mil for this, only 200 mil for something that's, marginally worse. So this is looking like the best option right now. If we keep going down, 24.6, it starts to drop off a lot on the performance. So we'll take a look at this one, I think. Throw that in. So this fits, and this gives us 4 CPU extra to throw around with Abyssals for the heat sinks or the warp disruptor. So we'll pull this bad boy up, and this was what, 190 mil, I think. Yep. So let's pull this in. We're gonna log in real quick, and then we can look at this guy on ESI here. Just gotta refresh to get the right account up on Mutaplasmid. So what did I have? I had 9.6 or something. There we go. This is the one I was looking at. So we'll log into our Tune. And then we'll buy that. Okay, so the next thing to finish this up is I'm looking at two to three main things. So if one is the point here, can we get any more range out of this? That'd be great if we can. 26 km is about where you want to be with the Retri. If you can get a little bit more, it's kind of hard for the same activation cost, but it's pretty good. And another thing we can look at is the heat sinks. So I'm actually going to look at the heat sinks first because I think that's a little bit more important. So we'll throw this up on another tab just so that we know we're going to buy that one. And we'll jump into heat sinks here. So the way I normally look at this is, there's 80 mil for the Infinity heat sink. So let's set that as my price point. 80 mil. And then we want to be under, we only have 4 CPU to work with, so we want to be under 24 CPU. Now let's look at how much damage we can get. Remove all these contracts and auctions and everything. So we're looking at 26.5, and we save money compared to 25.8 base mod. That's huge. And we can even get a little bit more here if you want to save some CPU for the same damage. There's some options here. So these are the two I'm really looking at here. And if we buy these two, that saves us a little bit money and gets us a little bit more damage. So let's throw these on here. 1. 2. Oh, just over actually. So maybe we take this one actually. We could take just this one and the faction mod. Or we could snag this. We can do these two. That'll be a lot less CPU. A lot less money, sorry. We're losing a little bit of damage because those two don't fit. So let's try that. Can even do 34 mil and 55 mil here. No, wait, this is not enough CPU between the two of them because they're both negative. Okay, so we'll do these two. And this should give us a little bit of extra CPU still on. So we got 2.84. Okay, so we got these two down. So let's throw those on my next tab as well. And then we're going to start looking at points to see if we can get any bit more out of the points here. So we have, what is that? 25 CPU to work with. And I really don't want to pay more than 200 mil. So these are my options, and it's very marginal increase here. If we're looking at Caldari Navy Warp Disruptor, the activation cost is 20. So we're going to be net red on activation for either one of these, and the increased range is very, very marginal. So I'm really just going to stay with the Caldari Navy Warp Disruptor, and we'll call this as the final fit. So there we go. That's our first one. And what I like to do, just quickly in your notes, you can just drop the Abyssals for the links from Mutaplasmid right in the notes here, so that way you know what you're going to buy. And then I should get that 5MN that I was looking at too, which is over here. It was 16 and 30.7. Which one was it? Here, it's this one. Just throw that one there, and we'll just copy that onto an appraisal from Mutaplasmid. Whoops. There we go. And we can link that bad boy in here too. Okay, so we got 3 to buy now. and then we'll work on the next one. So this is my Geno fit that's finished. We got a little bit cheaper with our heat sinks here. We increased the performance with my armor rep significantly, and then we also increased the performance with the micro warp drive. And I'm not sure how much that MWD cost. The armor rep, I think we ended on 200 mil, so it's a little bit more expensive. You're definitely paying a premium there, but I'm getting a lot more performance out compared to just your normal A-type rep. So we'll move on to the next retri here. This is my base fit. We're starting with a base fit of over power grid, so that's something to keep to note, that we're going to have to save that power grid somewhere. And then we're already at 100% on my CPU, so this is a really, really tight fit. So we only have kind of ways to work down and not up. So let's open up a new set here. And we're going to start off with looking at 5 MNs. So this is the snake retri. So cap matters a lot more with everything running. So trying to find an MWD that's really good on activation cost. And I think we had that one that was pretty much maxed out. Yeah, this guy's great for this. So we'll throw this guy on here and see how it looks. I think it's a bit red. Okay, it's red on CPU, which is fine because we have these two Tech 2 heatsinks right now that we can faction to save some CPU on, but we're a little bit over on power grid. So we're gonna have to save on that power grid. So let's see where that power grid can come. We're at 6.62 for a small rep. So let's check that out. Nice, and we don't pay like 500 mil max again. And let's look at, so we're really concerned with this now, as well as my armor rep, but also the cap amount. HP per gigajoule is a really good way to look at armor reps. So this guy's looking pretty good, you know, 3.8 HP per gigajoule, and then you can also look at the price and what it's estimated at. So it's estimated a little bit above that, so it looks like a pretty good purchase right now. Some of these could also be viable, a little bit less price point, sorry. But the HP per gigajoule is much lower, which I'm kind of worried about. You don't like running out of cap in your retri, you really don't. The other thing we can look at is the fitting here. So 5.4, we're not really paying a premium on CPU here. We might be paying a premium on CPU on some of these other ones. So I think this is our best bet right now. So let's just throw this bad boy in here and see where we're at. So we're a little bit over on CPU, but again, as I was saying, we have these two heat sinks to work with. So let's pull this guy up into, oh, we already did that, and then we'll look at heat sinks one more time. And you know, if we assume, how much CPU do we have? We got 52.98. So let's set like a 30 CPU max here, and an 80 mil limit again, and see what we're at. You gotta be careful because I just purchased, I think, these two, or I'm planning on purchasing. So we gotta go down a little bit here. 25.5. These look pretty good. Ooh, this one looks real good. For only 20 mil, 25.4. Let's throw that in here. And that leaves us 23 CPU left. We can throw this guy in. Looks pretty good. 55 mil. Alright. And there you go. There's something oddly gratifying about just kind of maximizing the fitting on it, you know, for saving money. So there's these 3 modules, and then we're going to check on that appraisal for that MWD one more time. And then throw all of this into the notes. Okay. Let's do the Varger last. I'm not sure if I'm going to fit that one up yet. So now we're on to the Ikit. And the Ikit's really interesting because we have so many different modules here to look at Abyssal. You know, Abyssal medium energy newts can be huge. You can get your optimal out to like 22 kilometers, which is so big compared to like your 17 base or something. Same with your MWD and your AB, getting that speed up a lot. Warp Disruptor, we're going to want a pretty long Warp Disruptor with the Ikit, considering it has such a long range with this 46 km with Mystic. So we'll see around here, and then this armor rep, we actually just killed a Legion, which I'm gonna look to utilize. So let's make a new mutoplasmid page here, and then I can check out this armor rep that we just got actually. Here it is. And plug that bad boy in first. I think I want to utilize this. Nice. So that guy fits nice and easy. It's quite green. We got really lucky off this drop on a Legion. It's probably around 1.5, 2 bills, something like that. But you know, it's always nice to just throw them on and not worry about selling it. So the next thing we have is, so all my hardeners are going to be non-abyssaled. Let's throw a Corellum B-type just to make it a little bit more expensive for this. We got some heat sinks here, so let's see. I know I have some heat sinks that I can use. Both of these look fine. I'm content throwing, even if there's just gravids on. That rate of fire bonus is huge. I'm just using some of these up. So we'll throw both of these on, I think. What did I put? 9.6. That one. Okay. 22%. 21.5%. Okay, that's fine. I'm just curious, we can look at that one more time and see what the current market is for Entropics. I don't buy Entropics too much normally. So let's just say, you know, 100 mil max damage. What are we up to? They're at like 23%, you're paying 100 mil on that. So this is fine. I'm pretty happy with these damages. So from here we have all of our low slots pretty much set. So now we're going to look into the mids. So let's look at our 50 MNs to start. What I'm really concerned with is not much about sig radius anymore because we're running this dual prop. So anytime I really want to mitigate damage, I'm going to be using the 10 MN. And then I'm not worried about my cap mount either because of how kind of cap stable this fit is. So I'm really worried about speed, and that's pretty much it for my 50 MN. So let's try and find something that really prioritizes the speed. These are all kind of decayed rolls. This is a pretty good roll here. And then we have another roll, which is probably a little bit better. 543, 549. So the next question is like, you know, you don't want to use something like this. This one has a green activation cost, and do I really want to waste that on this ship that doesn't need it? Hard thing to say. This one does have really negative power grid, which is going to make fitting my newts very hard. So I'm going to start with this one and see how this looks. We'll copy this guy onto here. Okay, so let's assume we're going to run with that. And then we're going to have our 10 MN. I don't think I have many 10 MNs. We can check real quick. Yep, just one. That's trash. So we'll go into the 10 MN. And again, 10 MN, all we're really concerned with is speed. 10 MNs can get ridiculously expensive, so you really gotta watch out. So what's my base here? It's always good to look at the base. So like 155 mil gets me 155%. So I'm paying like 300 more mil for another 15%. I don't know if that's worth it. We might just stay with the non-abyssal one here, because switching to abyssal is just so expensive here. This might be the only one, 163, to get you a little bit more. 80 mil for 160. So I think we can try and go something like this. This looks pretty good, honestly, this 160. Puts me pretty tight on CPU, though. How over on CPU is that? 25 CPU versus 35, so I'm losing 10 CPU there. Compared to any of these other cheap ones, no, they're all CPU bricked. This one's pretty good. What am I losing? I'm gaining 2% speed, and I'm saving 10 mil. Nah, we'll just stay with this. Okay, so next one up is Warp Disruptor, going up the list here. So we'll go back over here, see what Warp Disruptors I have. looking for something with long range, and then I think we're gonna need the CPU, so we can't go too over on CPU. And almost all of mine are pretty CPU bricked. So let's go back and look at some points here. Alright, so we want to be roughly around my same CPU, so I'm going to set a 40 CPU max, which will help look at my options a little bit better. This one's looking good. 400 mil for 34k point, that's pretty solid. You also want to look at that. I know activation's not that important for me, but if you want to get something super brick like minus 70, you're really going to feel that. Because if you think about it, you know, the base warp disruptor, I think it's like 40. Oh, it's 30 even. On activation, so that's, you're really gonna feel it jump in from like 28 to 70. That's huge. So we want to stay as low as possible. So even something like this, you know, 35.4 looks pretty good. We're at a little bit positive range, and it's only 300 mil. Go down a little bit more, see what we see. The range drops down a lot, even though the activation's looking nice. Okay, so I think this is our best bet up here where I had the 35.4. Yep, this one here. So let's throw that guy in. And let's open this guy up in a new tab to know we're going to buy that. Okay, so this leaves us with a lot of power grid and a little bit of CPU moving into my next set. And another thing that I can look at is, you know, medium cap booster. I can either use a faction cap booster or a tech 2. Tech 2 allows me to use the 400, which I really like versus enemy neuting. But sometimes you don't really need it. You know, if I'm running everything at full blast, you know, 800s is going to be much better, which means that I really should be using a faction. It also takes less power grid. So because we're kind of tight on CPU, it doesn't really matter because the CPU amount for faction versus tech 2 is the same. You see 25 for tech 2, 25 for faction. You just save 15 power grid. So we'll try it. I haven't flown the 60M in Ikit yet, so I don't know if I'm going to want the 400s or the 800s in yet. So we'll start with the tech 2 because that's what I normally go for. And that just leaves us with the newts to Abyssal. So let's go up here and look at this. Medium Abyssal energy newt. There we go. Alright, so we got some really good ones here. This one is like a god tier roll actually. For strictly amount. I might save this for a curse or something. This is just amazing. This is more something I'm looking at, you know, just max range, trying to get some newts on. This looks really good for the Ikit, even if the activation's kind of low. Or, I'm sorry, the newt amount is kind of low. This is max range and max newt with good activation. I'm not really too worried about the activation. I think we'll use the 800s, then maybe brick our activation a little bit, which means that these two might be the way to go here. 17k, yeah, I'm liking these two. And they're both very red on power grid, but I have some power grid room. But minus 68, minus 37, that's going to be 2 red on power grid actually. What about these? We got minus 63 and then 55. Okay, so we're only going to really be able to fit one of these on, I think, looking at this. So I think I'll choose this one, because it gives us the most to work with. So let's throw that on. And I'm not too worried about the small newt. You know, I'll leave that as is, because abyssaling it, so you start to get really expensive. I guess I can check real quick what I have. I don't think I have anything too great. Oh, that is pretty good. But I'd rather put that on a Sentinel for how good that roll is. Like, it's not going to give me that much out of an ikitursa. I'm debating not even getting a second Abyssal newt here, but we'll check and just see kind of like what the prices are like. So coming into here. Okay, so we know our limit here, right? So we know we're at 267 power grid and 28 CPU. And that leaves, we're worried about range the most right now. And I really don't want to pay that much, so I'll pay maybe double the cost of the faction price. So that's maybe 300. I'll give a little bit buffer for 400 mil. And let's see what we got here. Max the range out. Wow, this one is actually dirt cheap and fits quite well. The amount of newt is pretty reduced. Let me pull this up and see what we're looking at again. this neutralization amount is reduced as well. So I think I want one with less range and more, at least neutral on neut amount. So if we pull this up, I think, what is the baseline? 180. So let's get at least a baseline of 180 so we're only positive on neut amount and see what our ranges look at. Nothing looks great. So I think we're better off just using, you know, a normal A-type here. So I think this will be the fit that we end with. So I'm really only buying just the warp disruptor, I guess. Everything else is local. That's awesome. So let's go back in and we'll do what we normally do and throw these in the notes here. We got the Abyssal Newt. Raise that. There's the Newt, Warp Disruptor. I need the MWD in here. And then we need the 2 sinks and the rep. So that's sink 1 and sink 2. And then we just gotta do the rep. Okay. So there we go. And now we can do the last one, the Varger, which I'm still not exactly sure how I want to fit this up. So you know what, I think I'll leave this for now, because this is pretty expensive, and I still have like 30 days left on my Marauder 5 training, so I don't really want to jump into this ship just yet. But yeah, hope you guys learned something on basically just trying to get the most out of your fits, save some money, increase your performance using Abyssal modules. It's a really powerful tool. Hope more people get out there and use them and try and get the most out of your guys' stuff. There's nothing quite like min-maxing in kind of any game. So enjoy. Have a good one, guys.